Welcome to the 12th International Best Practice Competition. This is an introduction and guidance session. Really appreciate you being here today. And what you're going to learn is really the background to the competition itself, why it was established, and then we'll spend quite a bit of time in terms of how you can submit an application and the timeline around that. So the background to the competition, it's organised firstly by the Centre for Organisational Excellence Research, the BPR.com, and the Global Benchmarking Network. I am the chair of the International Best Practice Competition. My name is Dr. Robin Mann. I'm also the founder of the Centre for Organisational Excellence Research and the BPR.com and chairman of the Global Benchmarking Network. We have many supporters around the world supporting international best practice competition. So we really appreciate the value they bring to the competition, not only in terms of promotion, but also providing jury members to the competition. Just a bit of background to the competition itself. It was established quite a few years ago now in 2012 as part of the World Business Capability Congress New Zealand. And it was started at that point to encourage benchmarking, the most powerful approach to accelerate organization performance through learning from best practices. And what you can see in the top right-hand corner here in the slide is my opening presentation of that conference. And you can see in that slide in the top right-hand corner mentioning the first New Zealand Best Practice Competition, the first International Best Practice Competition, and also the first Global Benchmarking Award. I have been working in sort of business excellence benchmarking for many years. I did my PhD in total quality management, business excellence between 1988 to 1992, and then I worked that was in the UK, and then I worked many places in the UK, and then moved to New Zealand and worked internationally, trying to encourage excellence and benchmarking and for organizations to be the best that they can possibly be. And one of the stumbling blocks for organizations to improve quickly was their access to benchmarks and benchmarking information. So this is one of the reasons, well, probably the key reason why we started the competition, to make that process much easier for organizations. I was also aware that when we look at the history of excellence and world-class performance, the first organization to win both the Baldrige Award and the EFQM Excellence Award was ranked Xerox, later becomes Xerox, and a key enabler for them to achieve that transformation for their organization. Actually, before becoming recognized as world class, they were really struggling as an organization. But the key enabler that helped that transformation process was benchmarking, where they undertook over 200 benchmarking projects and to totally transform their organization. And so when organizations then aspire to become excellent, then they looked at Xerox as an example of how to rapidly improve. So you can also see in the top, so the bottom left-hand corner here in that photograph, you can see a photograph of me looking no different to what I do today, as you can tell. Maybe I look slightly younger today. But in the middle photograph, in the middle of that photograph on the left, you can see Dr. Robert Camp, and he did the pioneering work on benchmarking at Xerox. And he's actually given the award to the first winner of the first International Best Practice Competition, which was Curtin University in Australia. You can also see in the next photograph along the finalists for the Global Benchmarking Award, and they were Canon India, two organisations from New Zealand, one Spectrum Care, another one Watson Real Estate, who are actually the winners of the first Global Benchmarking Award. And we also see representatives as well from Dubai Police. So I said the winners were from New Zealand, but actually later on, Dubai Police went on to win the Global Benchmarking Award twice for this focus on benchmarking and trying to accelerate their performance. So really, this is the essence of where benchmarking, the best practice competition started, to really encourage organizations to share their best practices in a very quick format, so they became easily accessible for organizations to learn from and to to form benchmarking partnerships with other organizations. So what we're about really is a Centre for Organisational Excellence Research, and the International Best Practice Competition plays a part in this, is to help organisations develop a pipeline of best practices. So we encourage organisations to build their benchmarking capability and then have their best practices really validated through entry to the International Best Practice Competition. And we believe that the more best practices that are validated and assessed as that being an international standard, then they'll be well on the way towards world-class performance and can get recognised through uh, other methods, like, for instance, through the business excellence models. We've had entries now from the International Best Practice Competition from well over 30 countries from around the world, of which you can see here. We are trying to grow every single year the amount of entries we have from different countries. The ideal situation would be in 4 or 5 years' time, we have over 1,000 entries every year to the competition. Because the purpose of our competition is not just to celebrate success, it's to really spread the awareness of best practices and help organizations to improve. And so we're not just about reward and recognition, we're also about capturing the best practices and making them available to organizations in the future. In this time period, sorry, my slides are moving around. So in this time period, we have had over actually 10,000 applications from, it's actually, there's a mistake there actually. We've had over 1,000 applications from over 30 countries. That's just testing me, that banner for that slide. And I say we're really wanting to grow that each year. For organizations who enter the competition, they sort of qualify as entrants to our competition once they've been acknowledged as having a best practice that reaches a certain standard, and then they're invited to give a presentation. So we've had over 1,000 organizations give presentations of high quality best practices through our competition, which then become available to all participants. So they can actually all applications and whether in the written format and in a video format from their presentations are then hosted on our website called the bpi.com, and all future participants can access those to look at the standard that we have, but also hopefully learn from those best practices and contact those organizations to find out more detail about their practices. This is just a slide of some of the award winners from past events. In addition to the International Best Practice Competition, which we're going to spend the majority of this presentation on, we also host 3 other awards. And these are the Organisation-Wide Innovation Award, the Global Benchmarking Award, and the Environmental, Social and Governance Excellence Award. These 3 other awards are about celebrating really a culture inside those organizations that are either innovation focused, benchmarking focused, or the living and breathing sustainability inside their organization. So actually the applications for those awards are a bit more comprehensive because they're looking for a holistic approach right across the whole organization of how they address those areas. For the International Best Practice Competition, we allow entries that can be very, very specific just for one aspect of high performance inside your organization, whether it's on leadership, customer focus, whether it's on your core processes, whether it's on HR, whether it's on supply chain, whatever it may be. So we're just looking for really for pockets of excellence where you have good best practices, but then what we're saying is that we encourage you to develop more and more best practices over time. So you have a pipeline of best practices, because the larger number of best practices you have inside your organization, then you're going to move towards world-class performance far more quickly. Okay, so this slide just explains a little bit more detail about the ESG Award, the Innovation Award, and the Global Benchmarking Award. But as I've said, we're looking at holistic approaches to how you address those 3 areas. So let's focus now on the International Best Practice Competition. And I think a good way to consider this whole area of best practices is to look at the definition of what is a best practice from Dr. Robert Camp, who did the pioneering work on benchmarking at Xerox. So his definition is there is no single best practice because best is not best for everyone. Every organization is different in some way, different missions, cultures, environments, and technologies. What is meant by best are those practices that have been shown to produce superior results, selected by a systematic process, and judged as exemplary, good, or successfully demonstrated. Best practices are then adapted to fit a particular organization because every organization is different. It's at a different level of maturity, working in a different market, etc. So what's interesting about this definition is that he identifies some key aspects of what we're looking for in a best practice. And we use these aspects as measures when we assess organizations who enter the international best practice competition. So we're looking for practices that are linked to superior results. Therefore, you can demonstrate as a result of implementing this practice, you can show how your performance has improved specifically to that intervention. It's also the practice is judged as exemplary, good, and successfully demonstrated. So therefore, if you can provide some peer evidence that this practice has already received some recognition, or you've done some comparison yourself of your practice with others, then this is potentially a best practice. The other words here are saying successfully demonstrated, and this is saying again you need some historical evidence saying that this practice has shown over a period of time to produce favorable results for your organization. And particularly if that practice has then been applied not just in one area of your organization, but in different parts of your organization, then again, it gives a jury greater confidence that this is a potentially a best practice. We've highlighted the word selected by systematic process because essentially, this is what the jury are doing. They're benchmarking your best practice against others to assess where your organization stands in terms of the quality of that practice. But also, as well, if you can provide evidence in your application that you've used benchmarking, either in terms of developing your practice to reach these higher levels of performance, or that all other organizations are now learning from you because they've recognized that you're excelling in this area, then it's going to put you in a favorable position when you're assessed by the jury. There are three main stages of the IBPC application process. Firstly, you need to write and submit a 5-page application. You'll then get feedback from that from our team to help you to improve it even more. And then you can actually resubmit. So we provide a lot of assistance to all applicants that we have in the International Best Practice Competition. And once we recognize that practice at a certain standard, we invite you to deliver an 8-minute presentation to our jury. Our jury consists of always 4 team members to assess your practice. And you'll participate in a live Q&A session with the jury for 10 minutes. The way we do this is that we have webinar sessions, which will be held in, I think, June, July, where we'll group together similar best practices. Each webinar will consist of between 5 to 7 practices. And in those webinars, we'll have a presentation from each of those practices. And following each of those presentations, then there will be the Q&A. So it's actually a wonderful opportunity not only to share your practice and being asked questions about it, but also to listen to the presentations of other organizations and to learn from the fantastic work that they're doing too. Not only that, you don't just need, you can also attend all the other webinar sessions as a participant. So normally we have between 15 to 20 webinar sessions where we're sharing between 5 and 7 practices at each webinar. Best practices are assessed against 6 criteria, and you can see alignment here between these criteria and Dr. Robert Camp's definition of a best practice. So we're looking for the clarity of the best practice. Can you clearly articulate what is the practice, what's in scope, what's out of scope in terms of that practice, and why you believe it is a best practice and what was the purpose of it. We look at the level of deployment, we look at the level of innovation. That's not just about the uniqueness of the practice, it's also about just what makes it special or different or work well for you. So it can be an established practice that's used by many organizations, but perhaps you've implemented it more efficiently than other organizations. Of course, we look at the results achieved, any other evidence it is a best practice, that perhaps you've done benchmarking of that practice and compared it against others or other organizations now learning from you. And we also, of course, look at how you're trying to sustain that practice in the future, therefore making sure it continues to deliver value for your organization. So this is the assessment criteria. And again, if you're an organization that's entering the competition for the first time, then we encourage all applications. It doesn't matter how strong your practice is, because we recognize that if you then go through this process this year and in future years and continue to enhance that practice, you will be able to achieve higher levels of recognition. As well as celebrating, say, the highest levels of achievement, we want to encourage you to continually improve your practices into the future. The jury so assess you against this 7-star system. 5 stars and above means that the jury considers your practice is of an international standard. Therefore, other organizations in other countries would be interested to learn from your practice. 4 stars is still a commendable achievement. It means that the jury believe your practice is at the highest level in your particular region or country. 3 stars is still a strong practice. You've probably got some good results. It's working well. It's professionally executed, but it's still not at a national level or international level. So we have these sort of stepping stones really towards improvement, and 7 stars is the pinnacle achievement where really there's something truly outstanding and perhaps unique about that practice. It will really make other organizations stand up and want to learn from that particular practice. So IBPC is supported by a panel of over 70 international experts. As I say, we have 4 jury members per webinar session, and we have lots of jury members to call upon to bring their expertise to assess your work. As well as having the international best practice competition, some countries have feeders into the competition where they have their national competitions feed into the international best practice competition. And some organizations sort of integrate their competition within the international best practice competition. So for instance, for New Zealand entrants, they go directly into the international best practice competition, and the highest star rating from a New Zealand organization who enters the international best practice competition automatically becomes a winner of the New Zealand best practice competition. That's also the same process for Australia. These are the award prizes that we have. We have winner certificates for 7 stars. 7 stars, I say, is the pinnacle achievement. It doesn't matter what topic your practice is focused on. The pinnacle achievement is based on the assessment of the jury and this allocation of 7 stars. That's the most prestigious award you can get with respect to the International Best Practice Competition. But we also do give winner certificates for each of the 21 categories of excellence. So to be a winner of a particular category, it might not be that you've achieved 7 stars. You may achieve 5 stars or 6 stars, but you'd be the strongest applicant for that particular category. So it will still be a very high level of achievement, but say the highest level is a 7-star. We also provide special recognition to the highest star rating for small and medium enterprises. We also provide Pioneer and Excellence prizes for those organisations that submit the highest number of best practices that reach a certain level. And we also have honours of distinction for organisations that achieve 3 or more best practices that have achieved 5 stars and above. So I'd say these are really another opportunity for organisations to achieve recognition. So therefore, not just through achieving 7 stars, but also being the highest star rating for one of these 21 categories. And it varies year by year of where we get applicants for these various categories. So some years you can become a winner of the category with a 5 stars, and some years it might require a 7-star achievement. So this is the timeline for the competition. We have the early bird application process at the moment. Therefore, if you submit your application by the 6th of March, then you'll pay the lowest amount, the lowest fee to apply. We actually try to keep our fees as low as possible throughout the whole competition in comparison with other competitions. We're all about trying to encourage as many applications as possible and not be sort of exclusive just to Western countries as well. We're trying to encourage third world countries to enter the competition too. So we're very conscious of the fees that we do charge. But to get the biggest discount, if you apply by the 6th of March, that will get you that discount. Also, it's to your advantage, really, because you will get a lot of feedback from our team and you'll be surprised by the amount of feedback you receive. And so it will then give you more time to act on that feedback, improve your application before then it's assessed by the jury in the presentation stage of the competition. Another thing to note here is that if you can't enter your written application by the 6th of March and submit it, as long as you pay the fee by the 6th of March, and you can then take advantage of that lower fee, and you could submit your application later as long as it's submitted before the final deadline in May, which is the final deadline for applications for the International Best Practice Competition. I I'm not sure we put the final deadline actually on this slide, but I think it's the final. We do free calls for applications. I say the early bid call is what we're going through now. We then go through another call for applications where we try to get applications in April, and then a final call for May. Actually, the details are actually on our website with respect to that.
Dr. Robin, the final call is on 8th May, final deadline, third call.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We then have round 2, which is the presentation stage of the competition. So by that time, our team will have assessed and supported many applications and assisted them to be as strong as possible before they're assessed by the jury. And there'll be between, say, 15 to 20 webinar sessions normally. And you'll then be presenting your best practice in front of that jury, and the jury will give you feedback on your best practice and ask questions with respect to it. And the competition does not even end then, because the purpose of the jury is to find the strongest best practices for each webinar session, which will then go through to a final. And then we have another set of jury who evaluate those best practices in the final round. The teams again will give presentations, but say this time to different jury members, and they will do the final evaluations of those best practices. So it's quite a thorough process. You'll see at the very bottom as well, there's timelines as well for the Innovation Award, the ESG Award, and the Global Benchmarking Award. They're running to a slightly later timeline. So what are the benefits of entering the competition? Um, as I said, the whole purpose of starting a competition was to encourage organizational learning, or helping organizations to find benchmarking partners, helping organizations to excel. So that we provide in abundance the opportunity to learn from other organizations through listening to the presentations of other organizations and also having access to the bpi.com throughout the event and after the event to watch other organizations' best practices. Also, of course, we're here to provide recognition and to give you clarity where you stand with respect to your best practice in comparison to others around the world. Ultimately, we want you to be excited about participating in the event and provide motivation to your teams to further improve those practices that they're focusing on, but ultimately take that energy from participating in the competition back to their organisation and move forward in developing more best practices for the future. So all participants will be given access to the bpi.com where all the best practices will be hosted. So you'll be able to see previous entries to the competition. So you'll be able to see what the standard is like and learn from them when you write your written application and also deliver your presentation. And also it's obviously a great way ultimately to be sharing your own best practices to the rest of the world. We provide recognition through digital badges and certificates, and I believe they're all nicely designed. They all look good to me. So all of you will receive these, and you can share them on LinkedIn and social media, etc. And now I'm going to hand over to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Almas, and she's going to be talking about preparing your written applications.
Thank you, Dr. Robin. So good evening, everyone, and we welcome you all again. So I'll be talking about guidance on preparing your applications. Next slide, please. So there are three main steps of the IBPC application process. Step 1 is writing your application. It's a 5-page application. Step 2 is delivering an 8-minute pre-recorded presentation. And step 3 is participating in a Q&A session with the jury. So we'll be talking about each step, in the following few slides. Next slide, please. So for step 1, you have to download the entry form from the International Best Practice Competition website. This is the direct link to the entry form page. So when you go on the website, next slide, please. When you go on the home page of the IBPC, this is the home page. It looks like this. Next slide, please. On the top, you can see a banner which says early bird discount entries will close in 12 days. So this screenshot was taken when there were 12 days to the early bird discount date. So right now, I think there are 8 days to the early bird discount. So when you go on the home page, you'll see a tab that is awards. So it shows all the awards that are there where you can participate. That is the International Best Practice Competition, Organization-Wide Innovation Award, ESG Excellence Award, GBM Global Benchmarking Award. And you can explore these tabs to get more information. And when you click on International Best Practice Competition, next slide, please. You will see the entry form over here where you can download it and you can start filling in your application with your team. Next slide, please. So with the entry form, I'll just give you a brief about how to fill the entry form. Next slide, please. So the entry form is, the IBPC scheme mandates that you submit a 5-page application outlining their best practices, which has 4 sections. So there are, the section 1 is about title and type of the best practice. Section 2 is your best practice, which is the most important part of your application. Section 3 is your contact details, and section 4 is your submission tips, which you have to read before writing your application. So before section 1, this is a general guideline page where you have to, where it's mentioned that where do you have to submit your written application. So it is to competition@coed.org.New Zealand when you complete your application. There are, it's mentioned about the different 4 sections and that you have to read the submission tips. So it's a general guideline that you can go through. Next slide, please. So section 1, this has 2 subsections, which is title of best practice. And you have to categorize your best practice. So title of the best practice, make sure that you have it within 8-word limit, because we have those digital badges and certificates. So it should fit within that limited space on the certificate and the badge. So it's recommended that you keep your words to 8 words or less. You have to preliminarily, just categorize the categories, the 9 categories. In total, there are 21 categories. So just preliminarily, just tick mark which top three categories that you feel that your best practice suits most. So don't be very, worried about it, that which exactly you have to fill. Just for now, just fill, because the ultimate decision is upon the organizing committee, which one they choose, because when the organizing committee decides the category awards, this is where the decision lies upon them and not what you have written in the actual application. Next slide, please. So section 2 is your main application, the heart and soul of your entire application. So it is divided into 6 subsections, which is description, level of deployment, innovation, results, best practice evidence, and review next steps and plan. So in the next few slides, we'll be going through it section by section. Next slide, please. This is section 3, just your consent and acknowledgements. And you have to also fill the last table over here, where you have to add your contact details, which is very important, because in case we want to contact you for some communication, for some acknowledgements in the future, it is very important that you write the table, fill this table. Don't leave it empty. Next slide, please. So these are the submission tips, do's and don'ts that you'll find in section 4. So ensure that you read these do's and don'ts before you fill your application, because this will help you a lot in actually writing down your application. And it will, when you just feel stuck, the tips over here will come to your rescue in actually thinking that what should be included and what should not be included. So please refer to the tips before completing your application, or at least before submitting, hitting on the submit button. Next slide, please. So there are 6 sections that represent the best practice assessment criteria as defined by Dr. Robin in the earlier slides. So we'll go through it next. Next slide, please. So general structure, how do you, put everything in those 5 pages? Is it difficult? Is it very difficult? No, it's not. If you use the pages very wisely and very intelligently, it's like, you have to consider it as a real estate. Every word is important. So focus on how you're going to put information in those 5 pages. Generally, 3-4 pages for each section is a very good idea. In that you can, you have to be precise and concise to yet complete to, add all the information needed. Add relevant pictures, graphs, diagrams, or illustrations as they effectively consolidate the information. We say that one picture can say 1,000 words. So it's actually true. And if you're using some pictures, ensure that they are clear, very high quality images, because if you're adding a very good illustration and it is very blurred, you need a magnifying glass to read it. It's, it is not solving the purpose. So ensure that you incorporate clear visuals and clear process flowcharts, everything. I mean, the visuals should be very clear. Next slide, please.
It's actually 3/4 of a page for each subsection rather than 3 to 4 pages for each subsection.
Yeah, 3/4. Yeah, I said 3 to 4.
Yeah, I think you said 3 to 4, so it's 3/4. Yeah, doesn't matter.
3/4. Sorry, 3/4. Yeah.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Yeah. So general tips for the application do's is present your best practice in a way that it makes easy for the jury to understand and appreciate the impact. When you overcomplicate things, when you make it very complex, the jury has to go back and forth into different pages and try to understand, or maybe refer to Google or some other external sources. So it should not be like that. It should be like your application should be an entire world of how your best practice is. You should present it in a way that they don't have to go anywhere else, but just look at your application and fall in love with your application and give it a 7-star. So help the judges by providing objective details to the application instead of just being elusive and just very, very bleak information like the older process. For example, the older process negatively impacted the service delivery, which is very ambiguous. You have to be very precise and objective and factual by saying that The older process delayed the service delivery to 1,500 customers per month with a 3-day postponement for every customer. Now, this is very clear, very objective, very transparent. So don't leave anything to the imagination of the jury. Be very clear about your communication. Always state the month and year of the information. So if you say it was initiated 3 years ago, it could be in the first quarter of 3 years ago, it could be in the second quarter, it could be anything. So instead of that, just be very specific by saying it was in February 2020 or the third quarter of 2020, whatever is applicable. Always label and reference visuals. So if you're providing very good information in the visuals and the illustrations, they're very good, high quality, everything is visible. But if you don't label it like figure 1, figure 2, and you're not, providing that thread of information in the text, like if you're providing something in the text and that image is relevant to that text, you have to provide, please refer to figure 1, so that the jury immediately knows where they have to, refer where they have to connect the dots. So make it easy for them. For highly technical terms and jargons, it's okay if you use it, not a problem, but then ensure that you define them and explain them for the jury and the other, co-contestants in the competition, the co-participants in the competition, and for non-industry professionals. So always use full form for acronyms and mnemonics, which is obvious because it's your industry, but others may not be aware of it. So just provide full forms. General tips for the application: don'ts avoid repeating the same information and sentences in different section unless you are adding new information. So if you're providing one statement in one section in innovation and you're providing the same in level of deployment and somewhere same in the performance, either one can be true, either one section can be true, unless, as we said, you're adding more information, you're building upon that information. Just repeating the same thing again and again and again is, the jury picks it up and may mark you negatively. Be mindful of the information you are putting in the respective sections. It's okay if you just have a little bit of mix up, like you're putting something in a description and then you're putting something in innovation, but ensure that, when you talk about innovation, it is mostly about innovation. And when you talk about level of deployment, it's mostly about implementation. To the maximum extent possible, use only English as your language of communication because it's an international jury. The audience is international. So obviously, English is the mostly most used language. And if there is any information in your local language, it is fine. Ensure that you use a caption below the image. Translate it with a caption and just mention it in the text that what are you showing this image for? What is the purpose of this image? Next slide, please. So the section by section, we'll talk about what each assessment criteria is and what are the prompts. So every section has prompt questions which will help you in devising your answers. So for description 2.1, it should talk about what exactly is your best practice. Now this is the vertebral column, the spine of your best practice. Everything the jury you write here, the jury will relate everything to this section. So begin by defining your best practice in one sentence. For example, our best practice is, and then you follow it with whatever your best practice is. You have to provide a very short explanation of why do you think it is special, and whether it is an operational or managerial practice, and the scope and boundaries. The scope and boundaries is the vantage point from which the judges will assess your application. If your scope and boundaries is broad, they will judge it with that lens. If it is narrow, scope and boundaries will include what is, what resources were used, what technology was used, what is the starting point, what is the ending point, what is not included. So all those criteria should be a part of the scope and boundaries. What stakeholder engagement impact, what stakeholders were involved, or what stakeholders are impacted by your best practice. It's very important to write a little short about your organization and the context and challenge of or opportunity the best practice is addressing. It's very important because it shows that your best practice is purpose driven, it is goal driven. You didn't start it because out of thin air one day the leadership thought that, okay, we want to do this, but there was some challenge, there was some problem in the organization because of which the leadership thought that, okay, this is an opportunity and we should explore it, and that is how your best practice was born. So next slide, please. Level of deployment speaks about your journey. So in any journey, the timeline is important. Equally important it is over here to mention the timeline, like which year did it start, which month did it start? If it was implemented phase-wise, then what were the different phases? What went into different phases? If there was a pilot, then what is the current status? And what are the timelines respective to each stage? Then if you're defining something in the scope, in the level of deployment, how are you relating that information in the level of, in the description section, how are you relating that information in the level of deployment over here? So you have every section is like you have to connect the dots from section 1 to section 3 so that it's a complete picture. By the end, the jury reaches the 6th section. So if there is, if there was a best practice being implemented, of course, there'll be change happening. There'll be chaos in the environment in the organization. So how did you handle that chaos? How was change management, implemented so that everybody's on board, all the people are on the same page? So you have to write all that information in the level of deployment. Next section. Level of innovation is what is your, what makes you special, what makes you different than others if they are doing the same thing. So you may be doing a very, everyday process, but then how are you doing it differently, which is causing an impact on your organization? It is making your processes better, your, products better, or your services better. So what is that USP of your, best practice, which is different than the others, maybe regionally, internationally, globally, locally? So you have, is it a new practice that you just, you designed it from scratch, or did you adapt it or get inspired by it, and then how you made it your own? So how is it adapted to suit your organizational environment and people? So you have to add that as an innovation. Sometimes you feel that a certain aspect is an innovation, but then when you go deeper, it is a very common practice. So be very clear about what is innovation. Next slide, please. Results. So results is 2 parts, non-financial and financial. Both are equally important. For non-financial and financial both, ensure that you always use trend charts, bar charts. Make it, visually very fast to grasp. Sometimes you provide endless information in a paragraph, which is very difficult to comprehend in a very short time because the judges have to assess so many applications. So make it very visually very quick, and instant to understand. So bar charts, flow charts, bar charts, trend data charts, tables sometimes are very helpful tools that you can present your information with. Same with financial results. Always ensure that they're shown in US dollars, international currency, and whether you have saved any, you have saved any money, or was there any revenue generated because of your best practice? You have to write all those information in the performance section. So this is a very important section. In fact, the most important section. If you think that your best practice is providing good results to your organization, it is creating a positive wave in your organization, you have to do justice to this section and mention all those benefits in this section. Because if this section is weak, then no matter what great information you have provided in the other sections, it will not leave that more strong an impact on the jury as this section. So it is important. This section is very important. Next slide, please. Best practice evidence. So this is how your best practice is validated externally outside your organization. So we all love our best practices. We all believe in our best practices, but what validation it has outside your organization is very important. So have you benchmarked your the performance of your best practice against industry benchmarks, or maybe benchmarks outside your organization regionally? Has a practice received any recognition or award? Now many teams feel that if you have not won any award ever, you cannot enter this competition. No, that's a misconception. Even if you have not won any or received any award or recognition, there are other ways that you can show your validation. For example, was there an external audit done? So what was the what was the result of that audit? What was the comments? Did you receive any customer or supplier feedback? Was it favorable? You can actually write that feedback in your form, and always ensure that you use evidence that is directly related to your best practice. So if you have a best practice in, for example, AI. So what was that best practice only related to your best practice, or in your entire organization has won an award for innovation? So these are very two different things. So the judges know the distinction. Don't try to merge them, because they will perceive it and then you will be marked low. So always use awards that are directly related to your best practice, or not loosely or remotely related. So yeah, this section is very important, and benchmarking data will give you brownie points if you add benchmarking data against your industry competitors or outside your industry. Next slide, please. Review and next steps plan is the last section. So this mainly speaks about how will your best practice be sustained or evolve. So for example, if in your level of deployment you said that, okay, we are in this phase, but we plan to do this in the next few places. So what are your plans for those phases over here? So do you regularly review your practice and its performance? Who is responsible for the review? How frequently is the review done? Quarterly, frequently, weekly, monthly, annually? So you have to write that. What lessons have we learned? If you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently? And what future improvements are planned? For example, if you have certain things, lined up, what is a timeline? Always add a timeline that, we are planning to do A, B, C, D in Q1, Q2, or in, this month or that, this year. So you have to write that also very clearly, so that it shows that your plan is very foolproof and you actually are going to implement it, instead of just thinking about the future and hoping that it will be something. So yeah, next slide, please. Again, section 3, as we said, please fill your information about your contact person's name and organization. Now we come to step 2 and step 3. Step 2 is pre-recorded presentation. A maximum of 2 people can be classed as presenters. So what is pre-recorded presentation? So generally in awards, like sometimes you present it live, but it is not a live presentation. You have to pre-record it within 8 minutes. You can use formats like Zoom recording, Teams meeting recording, or PowerPoint presentation. You have to record yourself and you have to send that presentation. You can follow the guidelines that are presented on this web page. You'll get more information about it. And Q&A session, there are 4 judges on the panel per best practice. The Q&A session is a maximum of 10 minutes. So it's an international jury. And in the later stages, like when the competition is actually, when the next calls are there, we'll be conducting dedicated sessions for how to write your application, how to prepare yourself for the Q&A session. So this is just a brief overview, but for now, it is very important that you start writing your applications, and then we can talk about the pre-recorded presentation later. Next slide, please. So this is the entry fee page on the International Best Practice Competition page. So the top entry fee is the early bird fee, and the bottom one is what will be the fee after the early bird. So you can see the different awards and their fees. So you can avail the early bird fees as soon as you can and save some money for your organization. Next slide, please. How will COIR help? So as I said, there'll be dedicated guidance webinars to support the team in preparing your written applications and pre-recorded presentations. So exactly how to write your section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how to prepare, what slides can be there in the pre-recorded presentation. That will be happening in the future. But for now, it's important that you fill the form and start paying the entry bird fee. And stay connected with us on bpr.com, the LinkedIn page, where you will be getting the latest updates. So if you have, faith, belief, and passion about your best practice, and you're ambitious to put your, organization and your team on a global stage, and you think you deserve the recognition, you have the full, belief in your best practice that it can earn a 7-star or maybe 5-star. Whatever you think about your best practice, the confidence level that you have, please, enter the competition, because it is not only, you're not competing to prove something, you're competing to also learn. So it's a very good stage where you become better as a team, as an organization. So now is the time to prepare. And if you need anything, any help, we're always there. Next slide, please. So we are open to questions and answers, and this is a QR code that will, different codes that will take you to the different pages. We also have an applicant brochure that you can share with your team. So you'll be getting this this presentation this will be available on the website. So you can share this with your team later. And if you want to ask any questions, if there are any queries or clarifications needed, we are open. Please go ahead. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm thinking about this for one of my clients, and I was originally looking at the organization-wide innovation award. But I'm sort of debating whether or not I go that full route. I'm looking at the 10 areas, and it feels like it could apply to all 10. But then I was also, in listening to the presentation, looking at the top 3 categories, and I could identify 3 that would be suitable. So my question is, for the first go around, they've never applied for awards before, but they've earned rewards. Is it best to start with the international best practice competition, or is it, are we biting off more than we could chew to go for the organization wide? What's your recommendation there?
I'll let Almas answer that because I think it's a difficult question.
Okay, so there's a very simple demarcation, Dr. Cindy, between organization-wide and the best practice entries. So if that innovation is if there is a pattern, if there is a management, if the leadership vision behind the entire organization following an innovation principle, that is the value of the organization, which reflects everywhere in every department across all the teams. Every team member knows the importance of innovation. Then, and the entire organization is delivering results in different areas because of that innovation principle, that mindset. Then you can go for the organization-wide innovation award. But if there is an innovation in a particular area, in a process, in a product or a service, which is very confined to a particular small, narrowed down area, then you should go for a best practice entry. This is what I feel.
Yeah.
And your one
innovation, it's a little gray for this client.
Actually, one innovation can fit in different categories.
Pardon
so
me?
Your one innovation can fit different categories. For example, if there is an HR department where you have that innovation, so it will fit in innovation also, HR also. Okay. And if it was the digital transformation, then it will fit in, if that HR process had a digital transformation, that one thing process, and it will fit that, what we say, that bar of having an international best practice competition entry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it depends what you want out of it, really. I mean, I think if you went for the Organization-Wide Innovation Award, that's because you're serious about developing that innovation culture right throughout the whole of your organization. So even applying for that award is like going on a learning journey in itself.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'll share with the team, and we may reach out to you outside of this, but thank you.
Yeah, you can do both. The competition's easier, obviously. It's easier, less time consuming. But to say if you're really serious about changing the culture, then go for the Innovation Award, but maybe just also one of the best practices too. Why not?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Was the presentation informative? Was it helpful to everybody?
Yeah, sure, it was. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we'll have many of these more sessions over the next couple of months. But as I said, if you want to take advantage of those early bird fees, either submit your application or you can pay in advance and let us know how many applications you should be submitting. With that, I think we'll say thank you very much indeed for your attendance. And we wish you the best of luck with your best practice endeavors. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. 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 Bye.